Welcome back to part 3 of how to build the ultimate Game Gear in 2024. Quick run through. So I'll be using a soldering iron TS101, some flux, some solder, and some cutters. Little girl. I'll also be using the tweezers there. So let's get straight into it. So first I'm just going to pre-tin the board where the ASIC is going to go, and I do this because I find it easier. Usually when I try and put the ASIC on here and burn through the solder mask that's on top of those pads, I don't get a great result first time. So I like to just run the iron over with a small amount of solder, and yeah, that will help me apply the ASIC in a minute. If you want to see a longer video and a more in-depth video on how I change over these ASICs, I'll pop a link either on the screen if I know how to do it, or in the description. But anyway, let's get on with it. So I'll whiz through this because I have another video on it, and let's move on to the next stage. Okay, so now let's pop the LED in. Make sure you put it on the correct side of the SYF board. And the polarity doesn't matter. If you put it one way, the LED is going to be red, and if you put it the other way around, it's going to be, I think it's blue, it might be green, can't remember. I can't remember which way around the polarity is, but yeah, one way or the other, you're going to get an LED, so don't worry too much. So this one's really simple. It's just popping it through, holding it in place, and then just soldering those two legs in. And then just cut them off short, and we're done. Now let's put in the Game Gear clock. So again, you can put this in either way around, and it doesn't matter which way around you put it in. So you can put it in either side of the board, and you can put any legs through any holes. I like to have all the components on the same side of the board, so I'm going to put it the other side, or the correct side. And again, it's very simple. Just solder those two legs in, and then just cut the legs off. And now for the contrast wheel. So pop it in and put it on a flat surface. I find this is easier. First I'm going to just anchor him in with some solder. Make sure we've got a nice clean tip. And I do leave the iron on here quite nice and hot. So on these new boards there is solder mask on stuff, so leaving your iron there just for that little bit longer will just ensure that that solder mask goes and you get a good connection between the solder and the pins. Okay, so next up is the multiplayer port. So this is taken from another Game Gear. I've got another video showing how to dismantle these parts off of an original Game Gear. This one's fairly easy. So again, just line up all the holes and pop it in. Okay, just make sure those legs are aligned. If they're not, you're going to bend them. We don't want that. And then that will just click in. That does kind of hold itself in place, so you don't have to worry too much about putting pressure on there to keep it in place whilst you're soldering. And then just anchor it down with the big legs on the side, ground legs. And then just solder the rest of the pins. Again, a nice easy one. Okay, so let's move on to the cartridge slot. So again, I've got another video showing how to remove the cartridge slot. Installing it onto the new board is fairly simple. So just line up all your pins, make sure none are bent as you try and push it in. It should just slide in quite easily. Hold it down in place. And then just do two sides. So here I'm just doing one on the left, one on the right. And that will hold it in place. And then go through every single pin just to solder it. Okay, now we're doing the power cables. So you're just popping these through the holes until you get a click, and then simply just solder on the other side. And then again, same for the audio board. For anyone watching, you'll see what I've done wrong here later on in the video. And then let's just solder all of those pins in. All right, now we're ready to test. So to test this, what I'm going to do is get the power board, attach battery. This is my test power board. It's one of the older SYF boards that only allows one battery to be connected, but you only need one connected. And same with the audio board. So I'm going to get an audio board and a speaker. And then my test cartridge is Sonic, and it's Sonic 2 because when you turn it on, first thing you should hear is the Sega. And we didn't hear anything. So this needed some troubleshooting. So first thing I wanted to do was just slide in and out to make sure the pins are all good. Maybe there was some pins that needed cleaning. Turn it back on. Still nothing. So let's get a screen on there and make sure it's just an audio issue. So here I'm using a Retro 6 screen. This is the clean screen V1, I think it is. Okay, so we get a purple screen, which is good. And then we'll turn it on again. We do get the Sega logo. So the game is running, but we're getting no audio. So I have a little wiggle with the speaker, make sure everything's connected. Everything's connected. Everything looks good. Why am I not getting audio? Well, quick diagnosis there was I've put the cable in the wrong way around. So here I am now using a solder sucker to remove the solder that we put on there. And then yeah, we're gonna have to it's not easy, these pins aren't easy to remove. So solder sucker first, then I go over it with some braided solder remover just to remove the last remaining bits. So now that it's out, I'm just going back over those holes and removing as much excess solder as I can to make sure I can get the cables back through. Okay, so we just pop it back in. And just resolder. Okay, so now we are testing again. Just going to test it with the audio. And as you can see, we've got the sound. So we know the screen's working, now we've got the sound working. And we are happy. So we are going to move on to the GGFM. I haven't done an install video on this yet, so I'm just going to show you in this video how to install this. So first thing we need to do is take off the sticky pads on the back. There's 2 of those. Okay, and then just line it up with the pins on the back of the cartridge slot and stick it down. Next thing we need to do is to solder in the pins. So you don't need to do every single one. They're all marked out with the ones that you need to do with the brass circles. Okay, so next flip the board over, and what we're going to do is add some flux to the components we need to remove, and I'm just running a hot iron over those, and then they just come off. So just backwards and forwards, or top to bottom, heating up each side until the resistor comes off. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more solder to the bottom pads and also to the ground on the other resistor. And take the cable that comes with the GGFM, and I after doing this video I did buy some cable cutters, but yeah, just remove the outside shroud. then all of those loose wires, which I think the ground ones, just moving all of those away from the other two cables. And then we're going to twist them together. Take a bit of flux, add it to that bunch of cables, and then we're just going to put some solder on there to make sure they all stay together. Okay, and then I'll just use my fingernails here just to remove some of the wire casing or shroud to expose those wires as well. And then again, just a little bit of flux on those. And a tiny bit of solder just to tin them, make it easier to install on the board. Okay, so on the board here, I'm putting the red onto the left pad, and then I put the white onto the right pad. And then I'm going to put ground onto the bottom of that last resistor. So it doesn't matter which way around you put the red and the white, just remember which side they're on. So when you go to the other side of the board, you're matching up because that's the left and right channels. So here I'm just doing the same thing on the other side of the board with the wire. So I won't talk you through that one. Let's just fast forward through it. And then the exact same thing here. So the red went on the left, white went on the right, and with this one, the ground just goes into the middle. Excellent. So now we're going to test with this GGFM game that was released by the community. And this only works on a Game Gear that has a GGFM installed. So by this playing, we know it's working. So it's my new test cartridge for the GGFM. And it's pretty cool music. Yeah, so let's have a little boogie. And now for cleaning. So I won't bore you with this, I'll just fast forward straight through. But what I use here is isopropyl alcohol, 99.9%. And I think this is a flux brush. I bought it on Amazon as a flux brush. It works really well. So all I'm doing is just basically brushing all of the flux that's left behind off the board and onto my nice clean soldering mat. I have recently just started putting a paper towel underneath. Saves a lot of cleanup later on, but this works really well. I find when you use the cotton buds too much, or some tissue paper or something like that, it leaves a lot of residue behind, loads of fibers, stuff like that. So I will use cotton buds to just get up some of the excess, but mostly now I just use that brush all the flux off, and then the alcohol, once it's dried, will leave no residue behind. Okay, so here we have it, the Ultimate Game Gear in 2024. This is the SYF board that's been populated with a 1 ASIC and the GGFM. We've got the dual stereo soundboard there, and also a dual battery board that's going to go in when we do the final build. So I just want to take the time at this moment. So thanks guys, thanks for watching. If you do like this content, please subscribe. If you've got any ideas for improvements or any questions, please just reach out. I really enjoy doing this kind of stuff. I'd love to get better at it. So yeah, feedback is paramount. And I'll see you in the next video. So part 4 will be popping all of this into the new Jurassic Park shell. I did have a request for the copper to go into a different shell. So in the next video I'll be using the blue board going into the Jurassic Park shell, but the same thing happened, same process, it's got all the same mods.